The baby monitor. It started off like any other babysitting job. The Carters were friendly, their home was clean and quiet, and little Lily was already asleep when I arrived around 8 p.m. She usually sleeps through the night, Mrs. Carter said as she handed me the baby monitor. But if she cries, just talk softly through the intercom. It calms her down. Easy money, I thought. I settled on the couch downstairs, scrolling through my phone, occasionally glancing at the monitor. Lily looked peaceful in her crib, her tiny body rising and falling with each breath. Around 9:30, I heard a faint static from the monitor, then a soft crackle. Nothing unusual. Baby monitors can be glitchy. But then I heard whispering. I paused, confused. It wasn't Lily. The voice was too low, too deliberate. I turned up the volume. Static. Then again. Whispers. Just under the static. Words I couldn't make out. I stared at the screen. Lily hadn't moved. "Hello?" I said into the monitor, my voice trembling. Silence. Then the whispering stopped. Maybe it was interference from another monitor in the neighborhood. I tried to shake it off, but something about it felt wrong. At 10:03, the monitor cut to black for 2 seconds. When it came back on, Lily was sitting upright in her crib, staring directly at the camera, her face blank, unmoving. She never made a sound. I stood up slowly, heart thudding in my chest. "Lily," I whispered as if she could hear me through the walls, her head tilted, just slightly. Then the monitor screen glitched again. This time it showed something else, a figure standing in the far corner of the nursery. Tall, thin, unmoving. The shape was shadowy, like it had no details. Just darkness. I blinked, leaned in, but the image flickered, and it was gone. Lily was still sitting upright, but now she was pointing toward the corner. I ran. I didn't even think. I sprinted up the stairs, every step feeling like it took too long. When I pushed open the door to Lily's room, she was lying back down, sound asleep. No figure, no shadow, just a quiet room. I backed out slowly, heart pounding, and went downstairs. I called the Carters, told them something didn't feel right. Mr. Carter said, "It's probably just monitor interference again. We've had issues ever since we moved in." "Interference?" I asked. "From what?" There was a pause. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "The realtor told us this house used to belong to a woman who lost her child. She kept the nursery intact for years. They say she would stand in the corner watching the crib, even long after." I hung up. I couldn't stay. I left the house. I waited outside with the porch light buzzing above me until they got home. I haven't babysat since. But sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I still hear that static whispering when I fall asleep. The second face. It was supposed to be the easiest Friday night babysitting job I'd ever had. The parents were warm and polite, the kind of people who smiled with their eyes. Their home was spotless, smelling faintly of lavender and something baking in the oven. Emily, their daughter, was small for her age, thin, pale, with long dark hair that framed her face like curtains. She didn't talk much, just gave me shy glances from behind her parents' legs before they left. "Bedtime is 8:30, Mrs. Parker said. "She likes one story before bed, but then lights out. She's a good sleeper." By 9 o'clock, I was settled on their couch in the living room, tea steaming on the coffee table, my phone in my hand. The house was so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Then I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps from upstairs. It wasn't the quick patter of a child playing. It was slow, almost hesitant. I called up, "Emily? Time for bed." No answer. A strange feeling prickled the back of my neck as I made my way up the carpeted stairs. Her bedroom door was cracked open, a sliver of dim lamplight spilling into the hall. I peeked inside. Emily was lying in bed, blanket pulled up to her chin, eyes wide open and fixed on the ceiling. "Did you just get up?" I asked. Her eyes slid to me, slow and glassy, like she was underwater. She shook her head once. Then, in the softest whisper, she said, "He doesn't like when you hear him." A cold shiver crept down my spine. "Who doesn't like it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She lifted a small hand and pointed toward the far corner of her room. I followed her gaze. The corner was empty, just shadows pooling in the dim light. I smiled tightly. "There's no one there, Emily. You just imagined it." I tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders. She didn't look at me. Her eyes never left the corner. I left the room, closing the door gently, but as soon as I reached the hallway, the air felt heavier, like the temperature had dropped. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Slow, deep, steady. It was coming from behind me, so close it felt like it could touch the back of my neck. I spun around. The hallway was empty, except Emily's bedroom door was now wide open. She was sitting up in bed watching me, but her face was wrong. Her mouth was open in a smile that stretched far too wide, exposing too many teeth. Her eyes were no longer brown but black, pure, gleaming black. Her head tilted sharply to the side with a soft crack, and in a voice far deeper than hers, she said, "You weren't supposed to see me yet." The lights in the hallway flickered violently, plunging me into darkness. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. When the lights blinked back on, the bed was empty. I didn't think. I ran, down the stairs, through the living room, out the front door. I don't remember locking it. I just remember the cold night air burning my lungs as I reached my car and sped away. The next morning, the Parkers called. Their voices were sharp, panicked. They said Emily was gone, and they wanted to know why I left the front door wide open. Whispers through the baby monitor. I'd babysat for the Harrisons a handful of times before, and it was always easy money. They were a nice couple, their home was clean and modern, and their baby, Noah, was one of the quietest infants I'd ever watched. He was already asleep in his crib upstairs by the time they headed out for their date night. Before leaving, Mrs. Harrison handed me a mug of tea and smiled. "You probably won't even hear a peep from him, but if you do, just check the monitor before going up." I nodded, already thinking about the show I was planning to binge. The first hour was uneventful. I sat curled on their couch, the faint aroma of laundry detergent lingering in the air, the baby monitor on the coffee table beside me. Its screen was black. Noah's room was dark, but I could hear the faint background hum of static through the speaker. Around 9:40, I leaned forward to grab my tea when I heard it. Something faint beneath the static. At first, I thought it was just interference, maybe a neighbor's device crossing signals. But then it came again, a slow, deliberate sound that didn't belong. Breathing. Deep, steady breathing. I froze, my hand hovering over the monitor. Then, softly, a man's voice whispered through the static, "He's awake. The hairs on my arms stood straight. I grabbed the monitor and stared at the screen. It was just black, the same dim shape of the crib barely visible in the corner of the image. But I swore I saw something move in the dark, something too tall to be Noah. I rushed upstairs, heart pounding in my ears. The nursery door was open exactly as I'd left it. Noah lay in his crib, tiny chest rising and falling, sound asleep. The room was quiet except for the faint ticking of a small owl-shaped clock on the wall. I lingered for a moment, scanning the corners, but saw nothing. I convinced myself it had to be interference. Back downstairs, I set the monitor on the table again, this time turning the volume lower so I wouldn't jump at every little sound. For a while, it was just soft static. My breathing slowed, and I was about to pick up my phone when it came again. Clearer, closer, like someone leaning into the microphone. Come closer. I froze. The sound was calm, almost playful, but it made my skin crawl. Then another whisper, slower this time. He likes you. Upstairs, I heard it, the unmistakable groan of floorboards under weight. 1 step, 2 steps. Then silence. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called the Harrisons. No answer. The monitor crackled violently for a second, distorting like the voice was pushing through static. And then Noah started screaming. Not fussing, screaming like he'd seen something that terrified him. I bolted upstairs. The nursery door, which I had left wide open, was now half shut. I pushed it slowly, my fingers tightening on the doorknob. The room smelled faintly of something metallic, like old pennies. Noah was standing in his crib, clutching the railing with white knuckles. His face was red from crying, but his eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on the far corner of the room, where the shadows were darker than they should have been. I followed his gaze, my breath catching. Something in that corner shifted. Not a person, not quite. The monitor on the dresser, the same one I had been listening to downstairs, suddenly hissed to life. Through the static came the same deep, deliberate whisper. Your turn. The light above me flickered, then popped, plunging the room into total darkness. Something moved in the shadows, fast, low, and wrong. I didn't look again. I scooped Noah into my arms and ran down the stairs so quickly I nearly tripped, not stopping until I was outside in the cold night air, the wind stinging my face. When the Harrisons called me the next day, their tone was clipped and suspicious. They wanted to know why I had left so abruptly, why the front door was unlocked, and, most importantly, why the baby monitor in Noah's room had been turned to face the corner.